back worth a whole lot more than 300 lousy bucks. So if you're out there listening and still haven't had a vaccination, for whatever reason, I thought we'd get some facts, down-to-earth facts in layman's terms, and dispel a few myths with 2GB's resident Dr. Ross Walker. G'day, Ross.
G'day, mate. How are you? I'm
very, very well. For instance, Ross, let me go to an email I just received. Let me just read this to you. Craig says, "Hey, Chris, few things you need to understand about vaccines." Now, Craig's not a doctor, but he thinks he is.
Yep.
Especially experimental ones that actually do not work as a vaccine. Vaccines actually stop disease, don't allow somebody to spread a disease and don't cause death or health issue. COVID vax does not stop anything, does not stop spreading it, and does not stop people dying or having health issues. In fact, these vaccines have caused more deaths and health issues in 6 months than all other vaccines ever. Your response to that?
Complete and utter garbage. There are no vaccines that 100% stop illnesses. Well, mind you, smallpox vaccine did get rid of smallpox, but this fellow's living on another planet. So let's use the example of the influenza vaccine. Influenza vaccine has about a 60% effectiveness rate. Now, what does that mean? That means that you still have a 40% chance of getting the flu and passing it on, but you won't die from influenza and you won't get severe influenza. It's exactly the same thing with the COVID vaccines. So, for example, people say that Pfizer is a superior vaccine to AstraZeneca. No, it's not. Pfizer has
Let's repeat that for people.
Yeah.
And I've got friends who are sitting back at home, unvaccinated, still going out shopping, say that they'll wait until October so they can get Pfizer because they're worried about AstraZeneca. But they don't know what you've just said. Just say it again.
Pfizer is not a superior vaccine to AstraZeneca. Let me give you the facts. Pfizer has a 95% effectiveness rate. AstraZeneca has an 80% effectiveness rate. So you're going to say, well, hang on, Ross, you just contradicted yourself. But what that means is you still have with Pfizer a 5% chance of getting a cold if you're exposed to COVID and passing on a weaker version of the virus. And with AstraZeneca, it's a 20% chance of getting a cold and passing on a weaker version of the virus. And I think you did as well, had my vaccination a bit earlier because I wanted to be fully vaccinated.
6 weeks.
So it's probably reduced the effectiveness down to about 60-70%. But still, you and I are not going to die from COVID, nor will we get a serious COVID illness with the potential for the long COVID syndrome that many people are getting. And when I say Pfizer is not superior to AstraZeneca, what I mean is when you look at, say, the 6 to 9 months results for people who've been vaccinated, it appears, and these are very, very preliminary results, but it appears that the Pfizer antibodies that are induced are dropping down a bit compared with AstraZeneca. So it appears that maybe for older people especially, AstraZeneca is a more effective vaccine in the long term. We may not need another jab in 12 months if we've had AstraZeneca, but it's looking like we will with Pfizer.
And the likelihood of blood clots are basically the same for both jabs too, right?
Oh, no. The likelihood of blood clots for Pfizer is I haven't actually seen any cases associated with that, but Pfizer can induce what's called a myocarditis, which is an inflammation of the heart, in about 4 cases per million. With the AstraZeneca, the chance of getting a blood clot for people over the age of 50 is about 1 in 50,000. For under the age of 50, about 1 in 35,000. But I bring up the example of a drug that is used all the time in hospitals. There'll be millions of people today, Chris, tomorrow, the day after, getting a drug called heparin. Now, heparin is a blood thinner, but paradoxically can make exactly the same antibody that the AstraZeneca vaccine does. But the difference is, instead of being 1 in 50,000, it's 1 in 500 for people in the general medical and surgical wards. And for people who've had bypasses, about 1 to 3% of people who get heparin. No one bats an eyelid about getting heparin. So what we're saying, and you said this right at the start, and it's absolutely correct. So any wacko who's listening to this who doesn't believe in vaccination, vaccinations of all medical therapies, whether you're looking at pharmaceutical therapy, whether you're looking at surgical therapy, radiotherapy, it doesn't matter. Vaccinations are easily the safest, of all the medical therapies we have and the most effective. And again, these wackos are not remembering the little children who would die from diphtheria, from whooping cough, and the kids would be permanently disabled from polio. That's all gone now. Why? It's called vaccination. If anyone's anti-vaccination, they should start living in the 21st century and realise that this is scientific fact. It's not even scientific debate. You can debate about many aspects of medical therapies. There is no debate about vaccination from scientists. It's only these wackos who get their information from Facebook, for goodness sake.
Pfizer may change my DNA. I don't want to risk that.
God's sake. You see, again, this shows, and I said on my show last Sunday night, Chris, people who think that the Pfizer vaccine may change your brain power or your DNA should see it as an advantage or an opportunity, for goodness sake, for these people who believe this nonsense. There is no way an RNA virus can affect your DNA, your genes. The way it works is DNA creates RNA, which then creates protein. It doesn't work back the other way. It is impossible for the Pfizer vaccine or the Moderna vaccine, which are both RNA vaccines, to affect DNA. It just has no science behind it. And for all you people worrying about this, there's no 5G chips in these vaccinations. And some looper came out the other day, a guy called Dr. Vernon Coleman, a complete fruitcake, this guy's just a wacko, who suggested that people who've been vaccinated will die in 5 years' time. Now, anyone can say that about anything.
Yeah.
So it's just,
right, okay.
It's just ridiculous.
Listen, I want to talk about the concurrent testing regime that occurred around the world, and people need to understand this because I'm hearing from so many, the vaccines were rushed. I don't want to be a guinea pig. It's an experimental drug. I'll wait a few years to see if there are any long-term effects.
Okay, firstly, this is just repurposing technology that's been studied for years for this new virus. It's not new techniques. This is just rubbish. All medical therapies were started being investigated and researched about 20 years ago. But what is the fact these people don't seem to figure out? That the death rate of the Wuhan strain was about 3%. This one's about 0.55%, the Delta strain, because the people who were sicker and more vulnerable have been vaccinated.
Yes. We
saw 19 deaths in the Newmarch nursing home last year amongst unvaccinated, elderly, vulnerable people. When it hit the Summit Care nursing home in Castle Hill, there have been no deaths because the people were vaccinated. Look at the facts, you morons who are listening to this who don't believe in it.
Which is why Paul Kelly, the Chief Medical Officer, said this yesterday.
This is an epidemic or a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
So what do you say, Ross, to those who are saying, I'll still wait for Pfizer. I don't want AstraZeneca, thank you. I'll wait till late October or November when I can get it.
What I'm saying to them, Chris, is what you've made so much common sense over. I listen to you every week, as you know, and this common sense you've been making about it has just been it's been tremendous to have people like you making these comments. Look at what's happening right at the moment in Sydney. We had the biggest caseload yesterday. This Delta strain is not going away. The only way it's going to go away is if every adult person gets there and puts their arm and get the jab in the arm, as the Premier keeps saying, so we can get vaccinated. This is facts. It's not even conjecture. This is fact.
Yeah. I have rights, people tell me. Nobody has the authority to tell me what to do.
Oh, for goodness sake. Okay, that's fine. And look, I accept the fact that we have to wear seat belts and smokers aren't allowed to smoke near other people anymore. That they're all laws that have been brought in. Well, probably I can accept that we can't bring a law that people need to be vaccinated, but if you're not going to do that, you should at least have a vaccine passport. So if people choose not to be vaccinated, that's fine. But you can't go to restaurants, you can't travel, you can't go to major events. All you can do is stay at your home and go up to the shops to get your essential needs, and that's it. So I think we have to bring in a pretty rigid vaccine passport to make people realise that always the needs of the few are outweighed by the needs of the many.
Can I ask you to stay put? I've got to take an ad break, and we'll come back and talk further about dispelling the myths associated with these vaccines. 22 minutes after 10.
Traffic with house prices at record